Morning. Lighting up the coal forge today outside. Testing out this new anvil I got. We're starting the forge with a little charcoal and coal, and then I use coke on top. You'll see that get hot real quick here. Doesn't take very long for that coke to get hot. The coal forge gets a lot hotter than the gas forge does. I've got kind of all the air running in there. I've got a little fan blowing up underneath this that's blowing air up into here. I've got it opened all the way so it can get as much as it can get to get started. And then once I get my fire gun hot, then I'll turn the heat down. Something like that. See, that shoe's already pretty hot. You have to manage this a lot better than you do a propane forge. You can kind of set the temperature on a propane forge and walk away from it. This forge will get really, really hot, and it'll get hot enough to burn up your steel in just a matter of seconds. So I'm going to forge up some horseshoes today. We're going to turn them into heart shapes. I'm working on a big rain chain. I want to get about 8 feet, and that'll take about 30 shoes to do that. So I do 2 or 3 a day in between my other forging. Once it gets hot, it's very easy to manipulate that steel up. The coal forge is pleasant on a morning like this because it's quiet. You don't hear it. It's much more pleasant. Quiet that amp down. Put a magnet on it. Those rings are bad. So when you're doing these horseshoes, when you're doing a lot of work with horseshoes, you have to use a special tong that's modified particularly for horseshoes. See the little divot? That's specifically designed for holding horseshoes. And then I have modified ones that I've made that kind of work for both shoes and flat stock. Takes a little while to learn how to build those tongs, but I found that you don't feel so bad about modifying a tong when you build it as you do if you buy a set. You can hardly hear that forge running. We're getting there. Oh yeah. This is a fairly small forge, so the hot spot in it isn't very big. You're trying to get all your material in a little spot about that big, but it gets ridiculously hot. I can get 2 or maybe 3 shoes in this one. Now I'm using, for my primary fuel, I'm using coke. And coke is it's a retorted coal. So this is the coal. And what they do is they put it in a retort and they cook it. And they take all the coal gas out of it. And it burns exceptionally hot. Back in the day before they made steel out of with coal kilns, before they used electric furnaces, they used the coke to make the steel with. This is kind of a experimental live stream. I haven't been able to do a live stream all summer long because we have too many people in Cody in the summer. I'm in Cody, Wyoming. So there's my heels that I like. We're always having to manipulate this fire. There, see there? That would have been a forging temperature. 2 shoes at a time is about right. You can kind of flip back and forth between your work on one thing and then let the other thing heat. Now I don't have any tooling other than my anvil here, so we're going to kind of experiment and see how we can do the tips of these horseshoes, points of the heart, without using a special tool. I've done them before, but it's been a while. So what we'll do is I'll use the corner of the anvil and I'll use the round face of this hammer. So this is called a rounding hammer or a turning hammer. It's got a flat face on it and a round face on it. We'll use this as a die and we'll shape this shoe using the round face of this hammer on this anvil face. A little more heat in there. I find I'm less fast with the coal forge than I am with the propane forge, but it's much more peaceful. Start that propane forge up, and it just gives you a sense of urgency with it roaring in your ear for hours at a time. This is much more peaceful. So the horseshoes never wear the same. Just like a human, a horse will wear one heel down more than the other. So you end up with one heel that's got a little more material in it. So you're having to fiddle around with used shoes. Let's see if we can do this here. Okay. Kind of running a dirty forge here. I'm mixing up my fuels. That's why it's smoking. That's the coal being coked in the fire. So all of this is the is the coal tars being burned out of the coal. When you use straight coke, it doesn't do that. Good morning. See, it doesn't take very long for that to heat up. Try to get my hot a little better there. So this is a handmade forge that I made, and unlike a manufactured forge, it doesn't have a clinker breaker inside there. So you end up with especially when I'm running this dirty fuel, you'll end up with this clinker of metals in the bottom that come out of the fuel that kind of wad up and kind of plug up your forge. So you get a few hours out of it at the clinker. You'll get a few hours out of it, and then you'll have to let your forge die out, and then I'll have to clean it out again. Generally, I'm only forging for an hour or so with this forge anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Got some heat there. A good hold on it. Okay, so that's our point. Hot spot. The thing about this forge is the hot spot will shift in the tweer, and so you're always chasing around where the best spot to put your metal is. Now that partially could be the way that I built the forge caused that. I mean, it's just concrete in a frame. There's a little plate in the bottom with holes drilled in it. And then the air runs up through the bottom. And of course, the air blowing into the fuel superheats the fuel just like a turbocharger on an engine. And so you get much more performance out of your fuel when you run air through it. You almost have to do that with Coke because the air in the atmosphere isn't enough to keep it going. It'll go out unless you're adding some additional oxygen to the back of it. Now, here in Cody, we're at over 5,000 feet elevation, so it's you got a lot less oxygen here than you do at sea level. So to get a forge up to forging temperature here requires quite a bit more work than if I was down on sea level someplace. You get a lot more oxygen down there. So I'm getting ready to bend this whole bar, so I'm going to have to try to get the whole bar hot. So I'm having to fiddle with that piece of steel in the forge and try to get as much of it in the hot spot of the forge as I can to get as much of it hot as I can. Otherwise, you don't get a nice even bend where it's 200 degrees cooler. It won't bend there as good as it does where it's hotter. So we got fairly good heat there. Half a heart. Well, greetings from Cody, Wyoming, Texas. Okay, so now we got this one hot. We're going to put that toe in there if we can. So when that metal is thin, it doesn't take much heat. The mass of the steel really dictates how long you leave that in the forge. Fiddle around with that. My fan is just a little underpowered, which is probably good because it saves on fuel. If you get too much, heat, it gets a little western, a little too much blowing, and you get a little too much air, and then all of the ash, instead of settling to the bottom of the forge and bottom of the tweer, it comes up and blows up at you. So you're better off to have less fan than more. It literally is just, this forge is just a frame, and I just poured concrete inside of it. Good thing about it is when it wears out, you bust the concrete out of it and you re-pour it. It's just about a half a bag of sackcrete. See, there's a good example. See how it's not hot here and hot here? So if I was to forge on that, of course, this would bend a lot faster than this would. So we're going to fiddle around with that and get it in there. And because I'm mixing up my fuels here, I don't really ever get a real coked up fire. So, but it stays lit a lot better when I mix either coal and charcoal, or coal and coke, or charcoal and coke. It'll stay lit a lot better than if I just add the coke. The coke, it does not like to burn by itself, especially if you don't have a lot of air to it. If you're interested about this, I've done a lot of videos on this forging. There, now we're nice and even. Hey. So I use the handle as a measuring tool. I use the face of the anvil and the square face of the anvil to kind of measure, to make sure I'm getting everything even. So if you hear some gravel being stirred up, I'm kind of in a little miniature industrial park here in Cody. There's 3 other businesses right around me here. And of course, 7, quarter to 8 in the morning is the busy time of day around here for us working guys. I like to do live streams over the coal forge because you can hear me so much better. What is the worst knife design? The worst knife design. One that doesn't fit in your hand very good. A lot of people will draw it out on paper, but they never think about how it's going to fit in your hand. And so they'll put a reverse curve in the handle, or they won't make their handle long enough, and it ends up gouging you in the back of the palm. Yeah, I have been so poor that I have had to make my own charcoal. Back in my starving artist days, I absolutely have had to do that. I never would have been able to do that if I had just had charcoal or if I just had coke in there. I kind of flipped the fire over, and you couldn't do that if you were using coke because it would totally go out. The coal stands, it stays going. Now this ain't great coal. I think this is this coal came from up in Montana, and it's not. It's a bituminous coal, and so it doesn't really by itself get hot enough to forge with. But it works fine for keeping the forge going. Hello from Ukraine. Wow. Well, I hope the weather over there is as good as it is here right now. It's beautiful here right now. Beautiful fall weather in Cody, Wyoming. Take my word for it, there is a fan blowing underneath this forge, but it's just so quiet you can't hear it. Okay, so that's pretty good. We got that nice and hot. All right, there's our heart. One down. We'll go get a brush. So while that's hot, we'll knock that carbon back into it, and there you have a finished one. It's the back side of the shoe. This is the side of the shoe that was touching the ground. I'm in Cody, Wyoming. Cody is about the closest real town to the east entrance of Yellowstone Park. So I am right about as close to the wilderness, one of the biggest wilderness areas. Well, it is the biggest wilderness area in the contiguous United States outside of Alaska. And earlier this morning, the deer were walking by here. We have deer. We regularly have deer and bears and right here in town. It's a little western here still. Pretty remote. I have no idea how to say that. Greetings, Tennessee. I'm in Cody. As long as I can get some internet in the shop, this until I get froze out, I might do these regularly. Some of these little forgings like this, different projects that I'm working on. It's a nice way to start your day, kind of relaxing into your work. I do most all of my forge welding in the coal forge because it gets so much hotter. It's a lot easier. So a lot of times while I'm strong in the morning and I'm fresh, any coal forge, any forging I have to do, I'll do in the morning. And when I say forging, I mean so I build these axes and they have a forged bit in them. So we forge weld the bits in these axes when we build them. Like this one's got a forged bit in it. So this is just mild steel, and then this is a piece of carbon steel truck spring in there. So it retains the edge better. And I do that in a coal forge. We got the toe on that one done. Now we're going to do the bend in the legs, heels. So there's our heels done. Work on the toe on this one. So traditionally, 1,000 years ago, they would have run all their forges on charcoal. And of course, charcoal is made out of hardwood. Well, the best charcoal is made out of hardwood. And I still occasionally run my forge on charcoal if I can't get other fuel. Now I buy my local feed supplier actually brings in coke for me by the pallet full. Thank you very much. I'm doing pretty good considering how old I am. I'm holding my own. Okay, so we got some heat in that heel of that one. We're getting there. Pretty easy to lose a shoe in there if you aren't careful. Carry it, forget about it. Good. Once in a while, I'll have to reach down in there with this rake, and I'll have to clean the clinker out of there. Yeah, we're making hearts. So I don't shoe horses anymore. I was a professional farrier for about 25 years. When I moved back to Cody, I decided that I was getting a little old to be fooling around with shoeing wild Mustangs. So I've been for the last 13 years, 13 or 14 years. I've been blacksmithing full time. I got one bent there a little more than the other. Woo! That one very hot. Really got to watch what you're doing. Pretty easy to burn something up. Get it in there. It goes straight. It just bypasses the liquid stage and goes straight to gas. It looks like a sparkler when you pull it out of there. There. You can't get too tangled up with getting everything even on these shoes because they don't wear even. If when you're using old used shoes, the horses wear them down unevenly, so one heel will be a lot thicker than the other, so you don't have as much mass in it. So you got to kind of make a compromise when you're doing stuff like that. All right, I'm gonna go cool this one off. I can get it picked up. Because we're gonna hook this other shoe into this shoe here in a minute, so I got to be able to get a hold of it. You're using a coal forge, it's fairly relaxing. It's just much quieter than a gas forge. Old, I can't read that. Let's see what it says. A lot of old things came out of the black shop. Yep. Well, yeah, that's why, because it gets so hot that it liquefies, and when you hit it, all those little pieces of liquefied metal are flying out into the atmosphere and creating little sparklers. I went to farrier school. There's actually schools. When I was young, back in the 80s, because we're out here in the West and there's such a demand for horseshoers, there was back then, they offered a farrier class at the college that I went to. So that's how, and both of my parents are horse trainers. And so it seemed like and I trained a lot of horses. I showed performance horses my whole life. And so I thought, man, it might be really valuable to know how to shoe horses too. So it seemed like a good thing to learn. Now we'll just keep adding to that. I already have about 7 or 8. I'm going to need about 30. So we'll just keep adding to that, 2 shoes at a time. See, now my fire's getting burnt down a little bit, so I'm going to rake some more fuel. Bust up this piece of coal. I'll be glad when this coal is gone. I am not happy with the way it burns up. Use it up. Here, crack the clinker out. Let the air get flowing up through there a little bit. Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, I cracked that clinker loose, and now you can hear that. Now you can hear it's heating up a lot better now. I reached in there with that rake, and I raked that clinker back off of the top of the grate, and now it's now it's heating a lot better. It's warming up. Yeah, it's a good thing to get out here in the morning while it's still cool to do this work. We're getting someplace now, making a little progress. But I guarantee those are still a little hot. Okay, I'm gonna go grab some more horseshoes. So I've prepped these horseshoes up. You can see they don't have any nails in them. When I get them, they look like this. And that's how you take them off the horse. The nails are still in them. See how all bent they are? They're all tweaked. And then I take the nails out and I clean the rust off. Because a lot of times if you put the rusty shoe back in the forge, they get a red color. The oxide bleeds into the steel and you get this rusty color, which isn't a bad thing. It's just, I just try to, I'm trying to make stuff match. Other questions? Have you ever worked with a little bit of wrought iron? Yeah, not much. There's not much around. It's kind of hard to get, especially here in Wyoming. Um, we were a patriotic lot, and so during the wars, everything that was made out of wrought iron got scrapped, and so it's like old wagon wheels and stuff like that are pretty hard to come by here. Old chain, we don't have a lot of chain. It's not like on the East Coast. So I have occasionally. It's hard to work with. Actually, it's a lot harder than steel to work with. Um, it's got a grain structure to it. Of course, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just because I don't have a lot of practice working with it, maybe. Wrought iron railroad spikes. Those are old. If they are iron, um, those spikes are old. I do a lot of stuff with railroad spikes, but I don't know that I've ever, not in this country, I've never come up with a wrought iron one. That's fairly even. The hardest thing to learn with this blacksmithing is managing the tongs. It really is the hardest thing I teach, is to manage that set of tongs and that, because you're holding two things and striking on it and wants to move around. That's the hardest thing I ever teach anybody, is how to know when your tongs are holding good and when they're not. And of course, the most valuable thing as a blacksmith to know how to do is make tools. And that includes tongs. So, yeah, you can test for iron. The easiest way I've ever found to do that is just with a spark test on a grinder. But you can cut it like halfway through and then bend it, and the grain structure will tell you if it's um, iron or not. But of course, it's a lot easier to tell if it's iron if you've seen some iron than if you haven't. Yep, nail header. You almost got to have one as a blacksmith. See, if I had turned that in the forge a little bit better, I could have done the whole point in one heat, but I'm chasing my hot spot around on my forge. You get a much deeper heat with a coal forge faster. You can get a deep heat with the gas forge too, but it just comes a lot faster with the coal forge. I'm sure that there's some physicist or smarter person than me who can tell you why that is, but I just know that it's true. I can take two pieces of steel. I can put one in a propane forge and one in a coal forge, and the one that comes, they'll look the same color. They'll be the same color, look like they're the same temperature, and the one coming out of the coal forge will yield under the hammer a lot better than easier than the one that's in the gas forge. Yeah, that's good time. The earlier you start, the better. For you young guys, my most valuable, two valuable pieces of advice I can give you as a guy who's been doing this for almost 37 years, get your anvil height set right and square up the handles on your hammers. That's the most valuable thing you can do. That will keep you from getting tendonitis and hurting your wrists so bad. Because that hammer with that flat side, it lays in your hand a lot better, and you don't have to squeeze it so hard to keep the hammer from shifting around. Other than that, make sure you're having fun. Almost there. See, once I get everything hot and everything going, I can roll along pretty good. The big thing is learning how to manage your forge. So I don't have that hot. Keep that shoe. I started banging steel, hot steel in about 1988. I was messing with it. By 89, I was pretty well into it. I was chasing around a couple of farriers and learning how to shoe horses, making shoes and making the basic tools. I went to school in 1990, and then I did the course again in 1994. So I actually did the farrier program at the college over here twice. And then I started apprenticing with different farriers. I got to be fairly good. I was a fairly good horseshoer. And then in 2000, I was down in Utah, and I started blacksmithing more. Ooh, see, that shoe's going to be weird because the wear spot is way over to one side. So that's going to be really interesting. Try to get that even. Time to add some more fuel. Is that coal or is that rock? I think that's rock. It's not enough coal that I'm going to put it in my forge. You're welcome. I am 53 years old, and I pretty much swing a hammer at some hot steel virtually at least 5 days a week, and most usually 6 days a week. And you can't tell. I'm in fairly good shape, and I don't work out. So, at least from here up, I'm in pretty good shape. This is different exercise here. I'm working on getting rid of it, though. Okay. Now, we got to be a little tricky with this one. Whoops. I don't have very evenly heated. You got to make damn sure when you bend those clothes, you got to make sure you got the heat even around that toe, or else it'll bend one side more than the other, and then you you fight it. It's just easier to make sure that you've got heat all the way through the piece that you want to bend. I'm waiting for the UPS man today. I think my 100,000 subscriber button is coming in the mail today. I've got some good ideas for some videos I'm going to do with it. you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them if I can. I think you'll be hard pressed to find a blacksmith that's got more experience on YouTube than I do anymore. I think most of them are dead. There's a, there might be a few left, but old Hoffy, he died here a year or two ago. There's a few around, maybe. Not too many on YouTube, I think. Well, we're over a foot. We're getting there. I think it's going to be a rain chain when I get done. Rain chain hangs off of your downspout, off your gutter, and it keeps the water from eroding your lawn. At least that's what I market them as. A lot of people hang them inside their house, hang them over their kitchen sink or over a doorway in their house. Wish I had more coffee. I didn't make myself up enough this morning. Might have been somebody I knew. I don't know. Living here as long as I have, I kind of know a lot of people. The Native Americans were still trotting around in Cody, Wyoming when my family moved in here. Now, as history goes and as history of Cody goes, mine goes back a long way. But that's not saying much because we don't have much history, only about 150 years of history here. close it up. I should have done that. I'm forever learning something. Well, you think as many of these as I've made, thousands of these, you'd think I'd know how to do it by now. Nope. Apparently not. Apparently not. Get that tip of that shoe hot, and then we're going to lay those other ones on there. That chain's getting long enough now that it's getting hard to manage. You're getting there. About 6 inches at a time, I figure you gain. Well, I'm really surprised that my live stream has done as good as it has today. The internet is not great out here in the wilderness. So we'll do a couple more. That would be great if my YouTube button arrived while you guys were watching. Makes me very happy. It's time for some more fuel. If you guys are interested in how I build these fuel forges and stuff, I will happily do some more videos on that. You just got to let me know what you want to see. You can see why I do this, though. It's pretty. I have very little anxiety, and if I have any anxiety, I just put a piece of steel in the forge and beat the hell out of it until it melts away from me, and I'm happy again. Take it out on the steel. Sometimes they get that clinker in there and they end up sticking to your steel a little bit, so you got to brush them off before you go to forging. See, that one come out pretty clean. Trick is telling where the toe of the shoe is. If you're real careful, you can see it. Now I'm getting down into the coke instead of the coal, and my forge is burning a lot cleaner now. I burnt through all the coal that I put in there. I got enough heat built up that it's staying lit nice and it's clean, and my hot spot is kind of growing evenly now. When you add different materials in there, of course, they heat at different rates, and you don't end up with a consistent hot spot. You get a lot of time to reflect as a blacksmith, staring into the fire, things going around in your head. It's good to be not too smart. I think that's some people, I think, are a little too smart for their own good. It's always been a challenge for me, is to maintain happiness in all my endeavors. It's hard for me to do. Coming up on a few hours. Oh, you guys know what those are? Those are Canadian geese headed south, baby. They are getting ready for the winter time. And they are headed south, too. Yep, my fire's just now getting nice. About the time I'm going to quit. About the time I'm going to quit, my fire gets good. Typical. Typical. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Heck, we've done pretty good today. Hard to get paid by the hour as a blacksmith because you never know exactly how long this stuff is going to take. It depends on your fire and your weather. Practice. Practice makes you good at this. If I make it look easy, it's because I've been doing it for so dang long. Believe me, it's not that easy. Go watch some of the videos of the students I've had and how they struggle. So I'm using the round die of that hammer. Put that in. Hey, it's getting heavy. Half a cake of horseshoes on it. Whoop! See, that's what happens when you get them too hot. Good thing it's just a horseshoe and not something important, or I'd have to start over. You can't see how that's burning, raging hot now, but it's. I'm going to turn dang hair down a little bit. So I've just got a fan underneath there, squirrel cage, and I've got a little flapper that goes over the top of the opening into the squirrel cage, and that's how I control how much air is going into the forge. I think we're going to finish this one up. Call it good today. I'm rolling into mid-morning now, so for me, mid-morning, and I want another cup of coffee. If you guys are into these, subscribe. If you like this, subscribe, and as long as the weather holds out, I'll be doing more of these, and we'll do more interesting stuff next time. I'll do some horse faces or something. I'll bring some more tools out. Now that I know that this is working and I can actually do this from here, we'll do some more. And we'll stand by. If you subscribe, stand by for some great videos about my 100,000 subscriber mark I just reached. So. This one might turn out to be the best one of all that I've done. You've got a good fire, nice even fire, and you get even heat throughout your work. It sure makes your work better. But I don't recommend starting with a coal forge. If you have the opportunity, start with a propane forge first. Get the technique of blacksmithing down, and then worry about learning how to manage a coal fire, because this is an art unto itself. If you're going to start this deal, don't mess around with this coal forge first if you have a choice. I mean, if you don't have any other choice, but it makes the learning curve a lot harder because you got to manage this and your work and all of that. And it's hard. It's not easy. I started with a coal forge back when I was in high school, and I struggled with that and struggled with that. Well, and that was well before the internet, so you couldn't, if you had a problem, you just couldn't go to Reddit and ask. I was using the wrong fuel. I was using coal that wouldn't get hot enough. When I was 16 years old, I didn't realize that there was a difference between anthracite coal and bituminous coal. And in the 80s, there were no blacksmith books. Very few. The only way you were learning blacksmith back then is if you could find an old timer who would teach you. I happened to have a few later on. I found a few guys that I was good enough help that they allowed me to stay in their shops and watch them and help them. In fact, I was probably the last guy in this whole valley to sharpen bean knives. They're kind of like a plowshare. They use them for windrowing the beans up when they grow beans. And since then, they've gone to rods instead of beans. They're just a replaceable rod. So nobody sharpens bean knives anymore. So, but it was me and John Dawson were probably the last two guys to ever sharpen bean knives in this whole valley. So that's how long I've been doing it. Swords into plowshares. The forge is, this forge is just out of a frame and post concrete mix. Very simple. When it goes bad, you just bust it out and make a new one. Thanks, appreciate that. I'm very good, thank you. We're just doing some art here. I'm gonna add another link in the chain. It's at about 2 feet, you guys. So 2 feet of chain this morning in about an hour and a half or something, 2 hours. I don't know how long I've been going. If you like the concrete, if you like what I'm doing here, please subscribe. If you want to see what I make actually to sell, there's a link in my homepage to the Etsy store. We're coming out with better and better content now. Now that we've reached that 100,000 subscriber mark, we're planning on me and my buddies are planning on doing some really great stuff in the future on the channel. So this will be for sale at some point when I get it long enough. But shipping will kill you. All right, let's shut this forge off and you can watch how fast it dies. If you guys are interested, leave some comments here. I will happily come back and answer them. If you have any questions for the 100,000 subscriber question and answer, thank you. I'll be more than happy to answer. If you, at some point, we'll probably start a Discord. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll kind of see what happens. But we cover a lot of stuff, tool making, these tongs I've made, the forge I made, the rakes with the fancy handles. I do lots of different kinds of work. We're getting ready to start a couple of art pieces. As soon as my Damascus gets finished and he sends it to me, I'm going to be working on a couple of Damascus knives, and I will be filming those, both long and short videos. I do try not to do anything over about 7 or 8 minutes on my long form videos, but I do a lot of short videos. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm more than happy to help. I do demonstrations. I do classes in the wintertime after Christmas. Yeah, and thanks for watching. Thanks. I really, really appreciate it. There's very few artists, and there's a lot of artists in the world, but very few of them that have the opportunity to make a living doing their art. And I don't get to do art all the time, but I get to do some, and that is very fulfilling, and it makes for a really great life. I'm not rich, but I'm rich in other ways. So appreciate it. A little bit. I'm not making any money yet, really, to speak of on the content, but hopefully at some point, I'd like to make it more of that. And that would free me up to do really, really great artwork. But we've got some really great stuff we're doing. We're going to be rebuilding this power hammer that's back here that you can see in the back. We're going to be rebuilding that online on the YouTube channel. My buddy Jeff, who is a pipe fitter, professional pipe fitter for his whole life, he's going to help me. We've already got the designs and all the stuff here. We're just waiting for it to slow down enough in the shop so we can do that. Of course, I've got some big Damascus knives I'm going to be making up. I've got some other art projects that I'm working on. And I've done over 1,100 videos, so most of them are all shorts, under a minute long, but a lot of good, valuable stuff, especially for people who are looking to get into blacksmithing. It took me a long time to be able to afford this shop. I worked out of the back of my truck for 25 years doing blacksmith as a farrier blacksmith in the wintertime. So Hello, you're back, and I have a t-shirt for you. Great, send it on. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, it's really hard where I'm at here to sell just art. So any kind of art that I do, it pretty much has to be some kind of functional art. Very few people are buying three-dimensional art in Cody, Wyoming for just to have for art's sake. Um, most of the people here are very conservative, and so they think of art as paintings or sculptures. And so my stuff mostly is stuff that involves art that's usable, door knockers, bookends. Um, I do a lot of tools that I do a lot of tools. I think this is actually wrought iron, actually. Here's the axe that my son and I forged here last winter for myself. And it's forged out of one piece of truck spring. So, and this one's not going anywhere. I'm finally getting to a place where I can forge some stuff for myself and don't have to sell it. I would probably sell this, but the price would be so exorbitant that you could go buy 10 store made axes for what I would sell this one for. I never have I don't want to sell it price. And this one turned out so nice that I don't want to sell it. So I'm getting to a point now where I'm keeping some of my favorite stuff for myself. The only way I can keep it for myself most of the time is to put my name on it big. This is kind of a cool thing. Again, made out of truck spring. I think they call them a Pyrenees shepherd's axe or Pyrenees shepherd's walking stick. A little axe head on one side, and then it's got a pick on this end so you can stick it in the ground. It's the perfect height for walking. I need to get a piece of leather to go over so you don't cut yourself. But you probably will never see another one of those, as far as I know. I'm sure there's some guys forging them, but they're probably not on YouTube. Here's one I did for my son a while back, and he likes it so much he doesn't carry it with him because he doesn't want anybody to steal it. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Well, I've just been so poor that I've never been able to afford to keep any of the stuff I do. So if I do really good stuff, somebody comes in and goes, I like it better than you like it. Here's some money, and I've had to sell it. And I'm finally at a point right now where I can actually keep a little of the work, which is on after 36 years, I guess. But I have very little of my own work other than tools because I sell it. That's kind of the life of an artist, right? I mean, that's any artist does that. So, but my son loves this one. This is kind of a like almost a boy's axe style, but very Viking-y. And he looks like a Viking, so it's kind of fitting. What else do I have here? This is a this is kind of an interesting axe that you don't see. So this is actually an axe. It's big size. It's 2.5 pounds probably. Folded over eye, and then a forge welded bit. A hair dryer doesn't work very good because they don't like to run. You burn them up fast because they aren't designed to run continuously for hours and hours. And so you're better off for the amount of money that you spend to get a hair dryer motor. You can go get a you can go on Amazon and get a squirrel cage blower. and they work way better than a hair dryer does. Yeah, so Instagram, Pinterest, Instagram. I have a big Facebook page, big Facebook following. But you can also see my work on here. I show a lot of my work, especially in the shorts. I show a lot of my work in the short videos on YouTube. So this little forge is homemade. Um, this was an old display out of, I don't know, came out of the garden center someplace, Walmart or Ace Hardware or something they were going to throw away. And I just put a block of wood over here on this side. I just screwed it in here, and then I just put this full of concrete, and I made my tweer and stuff is all welded up. I made it all. And then this is just concrete, and it's been holding up for years sitting outside. If it goes bad, you bust the concrete out of it and you go get another $8 bag of post mix and you build another one. It's fairly easy. You just have to know how to make your pot hole the right size so it so the air comes up through it good. I appreciate it. I'll be going live again, so subscribe and I'll try to get better at it. I'll try to um, let everybody know when I'm forging, and that way you can kind of know when I'm coming on live. But this was kind of a impromptu thing because I haven't. There's so many people that come into Cody, Wyoming, which is where I'm at in the summertime, that there's just not enough bandwidth to go live, and it's starting to slow down now a little bit, and so I can start going live again. I am working at getting internet into the shop, but it's a struggle here in Cody. So, well, you can always go back and watch the videos at at your leisure. So, um, like I said, I've done something like 1,100 videos. I don't have a ton of long form videos, but I've been posting on YouTube for over, well, almost 15 years. So, but it's just last week, I posted a silly video that pushed me over the top of 100,000 subscribers. And that opened up a lot. Like you guys probably wouldn't have, if I hadn't had 100,000 subscribers, you guys wouldn't have seen this live. It wouldn't have showed it to you. So, it's taken me a long time to get here, but I'm very grateful to be here. And we're going to do some really great and funny videos. When I get my bet in it, it's gonna be good. We're gonna do some really great videos. So yeah, well, and that's the whole thing is a lot of times I'm making something. I make stuff that I like for myself, and I'll show some other things on here. I've got some tools. I've made some tools that you guys. Well, I'll go get them. So this is a set of tools that I made for myself. Now they were forged independently on different days. So I'll hang them up so you can see them. These are called fence dogs, and they were forged out of one piece of steel. The eye's been drifted out, and you can go watch the video of me forging these. I did a video on it on my page. I think the lead in is actually of this. They call them a fencing dog. So what you do is you take the fence and you put your fencing in here like that, and then you turn this around like this, and then it cants against that, and you do that with both of them like that, and then you can pull the fence tight and stretch the fence to get it tight. A very old school. That was probably the first fence stretchers that were ever made. Now, did I have to forge them? No. Could I have just forged something down and welded a ring on there and they would have been just as good? Yeah, absolutely. But I forged these ones because traditionally that's the way they would have been done. And uh, I've turned down I've turned down a lot of money for these because um, I like them. So Yeah. Well, and it's kind of something that for the West, right? So, the barbed wire, they say the West, won the barbed wire. Barbed wire was the thing that won the West. Well, that's one of the tools. And they use them in other things. I think they use them for telegraph lines and stuff like that. But before about 1820 or something like that, you never would have seen them. So that was something that some blacksmith sometime 150 years ago came up with for a problem that they didn't have the day before. How do we tighten this wire up when we have to splice it together? Oh, here's a tool that we can use. Leave it to the blacksmith to come up with a tool. Yeah, they really work best for barbed wire because barbed wire mostly is two strands, and they'll put the barb on one strand and wrap it around there, and then they twist the wires together so one wire will have the barb and the other one won't, and so it won't the barb won't slide down the wire, so this will cant against the barb on the wire, and so they don't slide. Yeah, I pretty much make all my own tools now. All my tongs, my chisels. Like one of my favorite things to make chisels out of is this. This is what they call sucker rod, and this is the stuff that's in the bottom of wells. So like water wells, like a windmill type well, or like a oil well with one of the pump jacks on it. This is the rod that goes up and down and pumps the oil up out of the ground. And this is a little union. It comes in 30-foot sticks, but this is a union. And so you can see that I make a lot of tools out of this. So this makes great pit punches, chisels. If you cut this end off and cut it off here, you can make hardy tools out of it. Um, you can do all kinds of tooling with the collars, and it's tool steel. It hardens up and very, very durable. One of my favorite things to make tools out of. I do not make. I always make my tongs. When I'm making my tongs, I make tongs out of mild steel because you don't want hardenable steel tongs because they harden and then they break because they get hot. I've been using that set of tongs and they're hot clear to there. I really can't I can't get a hold of them up higher because they're hot clear down to there. So they get hot and then they harden and then they tend to break. They shear off right there. So if you're making tongs, you want to make them out of mild steel. Depends on what I'm doing. Every steel hardens differently. Some steels are air hardenable steels. Some steels are water quenching steels. Some steels are oil quenching steels. Depends on what I'm doing. And sometimes I will use a steel where I don't need it that hard, like because I'm punching hot most of the time, I will just make my chisel out of whatever uh, tool steel I'm going to use, and then I'll let it naturalize. And if it doesn't work out, I just reface the chisel and harden it until it works out. It just depends on what you're doing. There is no one way to do it. A lot of knives, you watch something like Forged or Fire or something, and they're doing an oil quench on all of those knives, and that's fine. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's my very first one. You got my first one. That's my very first. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I appreciate that. I can't pronounce your name, but I appreciate it. So yeah, watch my channel. I give away all the stuff. If you have a group, if you have a blacksmith group in the United States and you're looking to have a demonstrator, I'd more than happily do that. I do a course called Forging for the Apocalypse where I teach you in a matter of a couple of days to make all your own tools. The forge, you don't even an anvil shaped object. I teach you how to make everything but the hammer. So we go over making punches, chisels, the forge, all the tongs. See, these tongs aren't made by in one piece, but a lot of my tongs I show a process of making tongs with no tongs. So you can actually make a set of tongs with no tongs. You can go watch my other um Go watch my other videos, and I cover a lot of that stuff. You got to dig deep because there is a lot. I mean, we have 1,000 videos. I need to go through there and kind of clean out the trash. Now that I've got to 100,000 subscribers, I probably need to go in, kind of clean out the bad videos, you know. Appreciate that. Appreciate that, everybody. So, I think these are still way too hot. I'm not going to try to touch them bare hand because we were forging along there. But if you came late to the party, in about 2 hours, hour and a half, we did these. And those are horseshoes made into hearts, and it's going to be a rain chain. I need about 8 feet of it. I'm well over, I think I'm well over 2 feet there. So another couple of days and I'll have it. It's one of the art pieces I do. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Have a good day in Canada. I was a farrier for, I started farrier work, which is horseshoeing. In 1989, I started my schooling career, but I had apprenticed a little bit before that with a couple of farriers. And then, of course, in ag class here in the United States, especially out here in Wyoming, you learn how to weld and stuff. And so I started doing my first artwork in about 1986. So appreciate that. Thank you, Matt. You are the second one I've ever gotten. Amazing. I appreciate it. And then I actually took the farrier course twice. I was a horse trainer and farrier, so I did both things. I trained horses, and I did farrier work for them. And then I moved to Utah in 1998, and in 2000 I became artist in residence for Sundance Resort and for Robert Redford in Sundance Catalog, and I did a whole bunch of work for them over about a 5-year period. And as an artist in residence, you learn how to do jewelry. So they had a couple of really good instructors, and you kind of swap. You teach them blacksmithing, and they teach you how to do jewelry. And when Robert Redford walks up to you and tells you that you're an artist, you're an artist. And it changed my life. I was just a farrier before that, but being in Utah, especially in Park City, Utah, you get a lot of snow. You know, about November it starts snowing, and that kind of ends the horseshoeing business. So I started blacksmithing in the winter, and it just kind of turned into the major part of what I did. I kind of quit shoeing horses on only special stuff, and I would train horses all summer, and then I'd blacksmith all winter. And then in 2010, I moved back here. My dad got sick, and I moved back to Cody. But I was born and raised here, and I always came back in the summer. I'd come back and start colts for my dad. My dad was a horse trainer. My mother was a professional horse trainer. I'd come back and start colts for him every summer. So I've never been far from Cody for very long. So I started building tools, of course, because back in the 80s, and early 90s, before the internet, as a farrier, you had to make your own tools. There wasn't, it was very hard to buy quality tools back then. There was only 1 or 2 companies making them. Diamond made them, and that's ironic because I'm still using the exact same style of hammer that I used from the very first farrier hammer that I ever bought. This is called a rounding hammer, a turning hammer. It's about 2.5 pounds. It's got a round face on it and a flat face. And I'm so used to using this style of hammer that it's about the only hammer I can use anymore. I mean, I use other hammers for specialty stuff, but this is 85% of the hammer that I use. And so, but all the rest of the tools I make, your punches, your chisels, your pritchels, all of that stuff, your tongs, all your tongs, you learn how to make your own tongs. So I was doing not necessarily tongs in the beginning, but yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years before the internet became a thing. So yeah, the farrier work is the most. I mean, there's a lot of horses here. We're surrounded by wilderness area, a lot of hunters and guides, a lot of trail rides. And so, and then of course I was showing and training performance horses for all those years. And they're a little bit more persnickety about the kind of shoes they put on their horse. So I thought, well, shit, I better go to school and really learn how to do it. So I learned how to go and make shoes and specialty shoes and therapeutic shoes. And that's how I got used to being on the anvil and managing the tongs and stuff. I liked it so much, I took the course twice. I audited the course. I took the course in 1990 for 2 semesters, and then I audited the course in 1994 again, just to get the forge time in. So I shod horses for 2 semesters for free at the college after I was making a living shoeing horses, um, just because I wanted to get that forge time in. And again, that was before the internet, and so that was the only way you were going to learn. So very rarely do I ever get up to Livingston. Once in a while, I'll go through there on my way to Los Angeles, but I don't get to Bozeman very often. Um, I'm so busy now. At some point, I'd like to go up and see. I'd like to go see. There's some people up there that I'd like to go see. Some blacksmiths I'd like to go around and see. And hopefully as the channel grows, I'll be able to do that more. But in order for me to leave Cody, I almost have to be making money to do it, because I don't make enough to afford to go on a vacation very often. Yeah, I haven't shot horses. I haven't been underneath a horse in 5 or 6 years. I I've kind of moved. I'm old. I'm old, and bending over and being underneath horses is hard work. It makes this blacksmithing look easy. The farrier work does. So you don't want to mess around with farriers who are doing it all the time, because they are a tough group of people. Um, they have a different kind of fortitude, farriers too. Hello. Los Angeles, yes, that's a term of endearment. So I was showing horses in the 80s in Bozeman when it was a fun little rodeo town. Um, we used to do the winter fair in Bozeman, and big horse show up there twice a year, and it is not the same place. It's a totally, it is a totally different kind of a town now. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So, well, I'm gonna get off. I've been on for almost 2 hours now, so I got real work I got to do. I got to go make hat racks. You guys, if you want to go like stuff, go subscribe, go like stuff, go like my, go to the Etsy store and like some stuff. I know that money is tight for everybody now, but just getting that interaction with everybody really helps. So. And I'll be posting some more. I'll probably post a short video today. I try to post at least one short video a day. I did a really cool one yesterday. So the stuff that I started yesterday on my short video, I'm gonna have to finish up today. I'm making some bookends out of some buffaloes. So, and I did a couple of short videos that yesterday that were pretty cool. So, oh, it isn't too bad. I mean, I'm not hungry, and I got a place to hang my hat. So I'm not too, unless you've been really poor, you don't realize how little you need. So, all right, everybody, have a great day. Get it hot and hit it. Always wear your safety squints. Everybody that gave me a few shekels, I appreciate that. And we'll do this again this week. Maybe we'll try to come in. We'll try to come in later in the week of a morning when it's quiet, and I'll do some more forging, and maybe we'll do something cooler than horseshoe hearts. Thanks, everybody.